Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast. Today's guest is an exciting one for me because I know him personally, and it's Jacob Mark. Jacob, I do have a question. You do have another longer last name. Maybe you want to pronounce that for us, but I think you're known on social media more as Jacob Mark, correct?
Y- Yeah, my last name's Two Hendler, which is a lot longer and harder to pronounce, so I go with my middle name.
Your middle name. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But welcome, Jacob. We're super excited to have you here.
Me too.
Jacob, I'll tell you a little bit about Jacob. He is a firefighter. I want to say by day, but I know it's got some shift work in there, which we don't love in the quantum world.
Either
It's
do I.
hard on the body. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe that's why you do all these other things, but to mitigate the effects of that. But I'll just note a few things that I know about you. You're a certified life coach and neurolinguistic programming practitioner and a certified Wim Hof instructor. That's really how I know Jacob. And an oxygen advantage instructor, which I have taken your course once, but not your masterclass yet. And a yoga nidra facilitator. There's so much more to Jacob, and I hope we can bring that all out today. But something I caught looking at your website was that you do all these things because you want to help people become the drivers, put them back in the driver's seat of their life. And I realized that you've worked with thousands of people around the globe from all walks of life, and you do workshops, courses, you coach, you do retreats, and really they're all, what's so special is that they're all rooted in mindfulness, also exploring people's limitless potential. And you really want to reignite people's adventure in their life. And I now I'm learning some more about getting people to play again and laugh again. And so I hope we touch on that as the interview goes on. But it just seems to me that you're trying to help people's stress level, and really you try to bring out the best in people. So I'm hoping today we can bring out the best of you in this interview. And there's some things we really want to talk about. Obviously, we want to touch on the Wim Hof method, and that one of the three pillars of that, which we'll get you to explain, but really is cold, because cold therapy is a popular modality in the quantum health strategies that we try to practice. And so I'm just going to hand over to Andeea to introduce her to you as well, and let her take it from there.
Yeah, thanks you so much for being here, Jacob. So I know a little bit about your story because I follow you on social media, but I would love just for you to set us up with a little bit of your history. I know that like me, you're in recovery or you've struggled in the past with addiction. And I also know you talk a lot about paradigm shift. I call it paradigm shift, but this idea that the people that, raise us, or the people that are in our world, everybody has their own perspective of life, and we put meaning on things. And I love all of that. And so I want to touch on that. But first, I think it would be fitting for you to just share a little bit about your story and where you came from and how you got here.
Mm, Okay, well, first, thanks for having me. This is really exciting. Like I said before, I feel out of my element without the glasses on, so I'll have to get a pair of those for next time. But
We can help you
um,
there.
yeah, I know. You gave me some really great resources already, which is amazing. So my story, where do I begin? Yeah, so I grew up just like a conventional young kid in Nova Scotia, which was really, looking back now, amazing. Back then, I was really eager to get out of Nova Scotia because it's very small, and if you want to explore the world, you feel like you're kind of locked in. So I went to university, which, looking back now, I really had no business going to university. I think one thing I realized is a lot of kids and just people in general are really persuaded by the opinions of others and what they think they should be doing rather than feeling what they want to be doing for themselves. And so I definitely did a lot of things to appease a lot of people. And anyway, so I went to school, and basically this is where my mindset was at, was I was just choosing a place to go where I chose a program where I knew I could go away for a whole year traveling. So I took an international business program, and I only took it because I got to go live in France for a year. And basically then my whole goal was to party, and that was it.
Did you
Um,
at least improve your French?
I did, yeah. Oh, definitely. That was, I mean, I'm grateful. So I need to say I am grateful for the whole experience. I mean, I made a lot of great friends and there's a lot of good I can take out of it. But yeah, so fast forward. So I mean, I went there. I basically went to France and I didn't really appreciate where I was in life. Every time we'd go traveling, I was kind of just trying to find cities where I could party. It wasn't really about taking in the culture or anything like that at that time. I mean, I was in my early 20s. So then I guess I won't go through all the details, but fast forward a little bit. I kind of lived my life in a sense where I didn't really set a lot of goals. There wasn't a lot of substance to my life. I basically got whatever job I could get to then party on the weekends. And I was constantly escaping. So whether that was through partying, drugs, alcohol, you name it, my friends were doing the same thing at the time. And so I never really thought too much about it. I never knew how much I was suffering. I didn't know how much deep work there was to do. I was still really young. And usually, in my experience, there's some sort of catalyst that happens in people's lives where you're either confronted with an experience that shows you what's there, or you meet somebody who acts as a mirror for us, and you see, okay, how they're living their lives, and you kind of start comparing yourselves, as we all do, and you can realize, okay, well, I'm either, you compare either I'm doing great or I don't feel great about myself is usually what happens. And so for me, it was definitely meeting somebody. And I
You
have to
got
say that
lucky.
I got lucky. Yeah, I'm definitely lucky that she stuck with me. I'll say that. It's my partner Jess, and she has this awareness about her, or she had at that time and still does, but it was well before her years. Like she started a lot of personal development and so on at like 15, 16 years old. And so when we met, I was a man child, I'll say. I mean, I had never really been in a serious relationship. I had no idea what I wanted for myself. I was drinking, smoking lots of dope, doing all these things. And I was confronted with this person who seemed like she had this life to her and had this understanding of life that I didn't even know existed. Because personal development, meditating, like going to a Tony Robbins seminar, like all that was, I thought that was a waste of time. I was like, people who go there are weird or whatever. And so then I was confronted with this. I was like, okay, well, this is the way she's living her life, and I'm comparing now how I'm living mine. So I had a choice to make. I'm either going to make some improvements, actually set some goals and do something with my life, or I'll continue down this path and probably end up who knows where, probably somewhere not that great. So luckily, I made some changes and I set some goals. As you mentioned, I became a professional firefighter. But all along the way, I was still grasping for that quick thing that's going to make me happy. So kind of just like drugs and alcohol and escaping we're doing, I thought firefighting was going to basically be my ticket to everlasting happiness. I thought that, you get this career, I'm never going to have to really worry about improving myself or doing anything else. This is going to set me free for the rest of life. And I think we all intuitively know, but we still kind of live by this way of grasping for happiness in the sense that we know that happiness comes from within. We know that if somebody says a hilarious joke and if you're in a pissed off mood, you're probably not going to laugh. But if you're in a good mood, you give yourself permission, you're going to laugh. So we know this, but we all try to get that career, the family, the relationships, the house, the car, the things. And so I was still very much in that mindset. And so when I realized, okay, this isn't bringing me that happiness I thought it would, I started looking more into what are these people teaching, like Tony Robbins, where I think a lot of people start their personal development journeys. What are they teaching? And I was very curious. So I went on my own sort of journey. I went to the Tony Robbins seminars. This is where I decided to become certified as a life coach. Neuro-linguistic programming came in, all these things. And it wasn't until I met Wim Hof, that I realized, and I actually felt it in my bones through just the way he carries himself, the kind of man that he is, if you get to know him, and his teachings and the words he says, that I actually fully then like understood and believed that happiness comes from within. And
Can
so
I just
then
pause
go ahead.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a profound place, sorry. But some people may not know who Wim Hof is that are listening. Can
Hmm.
you just give a little
Okay.
background?
Yeah, so Wim is, you may know him if you've heard of the Iceman. He
Mhm.
is this guy who has really done a lot of extreme things in terms of cold and breath work. And his whole mission is to help people become happy, healthy, and strong naturally. So that's the Cliff's Notes. I mean, go search him. I mean, there's tons on him online, but he's an amazing human, and he started what's called the Wim Hof Method. So yeah, through meeting him, I finally understood that happiness comes from within, and then in connection with that, I realized that happiness as a goal of life is really a futile goal, because emotions are always fleeting. And if we just try to hold on to the good ones, then we're going to be suffering, because naturally life is up and down, and you have to go through those dark times to have the good times. It's just like you can't have daylight without having night. You can't have summer or good weather without also having rain and storms and other things. So I kind of got to that place where I realized, okay, I'm just perpetuating my suffering also by always searching for happiness. And then I think that introduction to the Wim Hof method, I will probably get into this, but I experienced a lot of healing in my own life, which then led me down this whole path of helping others in this way that we mentioned that I'm doing now. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, that's awesome. You just touched on the universal law, a universal law, and that is the law of rhythm. We
The
have to
law of
have,
rhythm.
yes, that's the law of rhythm. What goes up must come down.
Yeah,
Everything has an opposite, right?
that's right.
And
Yeah.
we as humans go with that flow.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I know in Buddhist teachings, yeah,
Yes.
if we're constantly that, desiring that happiness, it leads to suffering. Um,
That
so
actually is new to me. So thank you for, yeah.
oh,
And sorry, I was
But
gonna say, as a mother of two boys, still in their early 20s and going through their journeys, I actually, I hope they listen to this. This will be
I
there
think
was
it's
a lot of
important,
wisdom in that.
even if you think of kids, and if especially like with our children, when they start crying, a lot of parents don't want them to be crying, and they try to do whatever they can to soothe them to stop crying. And it's more so what I see would be beneficial. I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to say I have a full
Mhm,
grasp of this, but letting them cry and letting them know it's okay to cry, and being more on that side
mhm,
of embracing those emotions. If they get angry, letting them be angry, not feeling like it's bad to feel those negative emotions. And that's where we start getting into the full spectrum of feeling everything and being appreciative of everything. It's a lot of it comes back to yin yang. You've probably heard of that theory before, or that
Mhm.
philosophy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I was a men's addiction counselor for many, many years. And yeah, the it's the mask.
Yeah.
Many, many men are taught not to feel and
Yeah.
not to cry. Like it's a sign of weakness.
That's
And
right.
that's actually how emotions get trapped in the body. So yeah, you were right on when you just explained that. All
And
right.
I would
So
add, like, my military background,
Mm,
especially military college, you had to be tough through everything. And yeah, I
yeah.
yeah, I won't go there. Some stories, but yeah, interesting.
well, no, you make a good point, Laura. Yeah, because it can
Hmm.
happen for women just as equally as it does for men, right?
Hmm.
So, okay, so I know that cold therapy definitely benefits people who are in recovery from addiction. Boosts our dopamine, our oxytocin, our noradrenaline, our norepinephrine, and it all equates to that night, like better mood. And mood fluctuation and irritability. These are what we call post-acute withdrawal symptoms. So I know this modality can help so many people. So what we want to make sure we cover today is we want to dive really deep here into cold thermogenesis or cold therapy with you. Yeah, you can maybe just start with explaining like maybe some of the key points to the Wim Hof method and benefits. We'd love to cover also safety and all the things. I'll let you
Yeah.
start wherever you want to start.
Sure. I mean, the Wim Hof method really, there's three pillars to it. There's breath work, there's mindset training, and there's cold exposure. And it's really just the way that he's combined the three together that makes the Wim Hof method. So I think it's probably maybe more conducive to the show to let's just talk about cold exposure outside of the Wim Hof method and how it
Okay.
benefits.
Okay.
And so I think the biggest thing for cold exposure, well, maybe not the biggest thing, but I think that it's important to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because I see a lot of people exposing themselves to cold like I did early on, having no idea. I just was trying to challenge myself. And then I see often it actually becomes a thing that people do. Mainly, it can really turn into an egoic thing, especially in terms of social media and just wanting to get the posts out. And I think that this takes away from how powerful it is and the real purpose behind it. And everyone will probably have a bit of their different take on it. But for me, there's two main things that the cold really offers. One is it's one of the best ways I know to put yourself directly into a stressful environment and to see how you manage stress and then to find peace within the stress. So whenever I guide somebody in their first ice bath, 9 times out of 10, they're panicked, their breath becomes extremely fast, they want to get out right away, they don't know what to do. With a bit of coaching and trust in themselves, they calm down and then they can have a full-on conversation and they can laugh with me while they're in this freezing cold water. And so that's almost a metaphor or an example of a larger piece of life where you could be going through chaos in your life. You could be going through a terrible situation at work, a divorce, whatever it is. But to remember that just because these things are happening doesn't mean we have to lose our mindfulness and lose every part of ourselves. We can kind of keep our center. So that's maybe even the most important thing. The second thing I really love about it, and I guess this is more, I don't know if this is the right word, but esoteric, but more, I'll explain it. So it's a way to connect once again with Mother Nature, for me anyway.
Love it.
And I think that as humans, and this probably comes back to the quantum world also with you guys, is that we become so disconnected from nature. And there's so many parts of nature that can help regulate us and actually teach us lessons. So when we go to do our first ice bath, also if I'm running a workshop, I ask everybody, how are you feeling? Most people are anxious, they're nervous about their first ice bath. And I was too my first time. And my first for a while, I was nervous. I didn't want to be cold. I didn't want that stress. But I knew it was good for me. And so what really helped me early on was to realize that when I'm about to go in that water, I am in a sense about to connect with Mother Nature. And in that moment, if you can really appreciate what you're doing, you can kind of slip into the position of the student and just realize that Mother Nature is here to teach you a lesson. And there's nothing that you have to achieve. There's no, I have to stay 2 minutes, 5 minutes in the cold. I have to get over my shoulders. I have to do this. And we put all these variables on it that really cause a lot of pressure when really all we're doing is one, learning how we handle stress and then looking at this progressively. Can we get better as we go? And can we actually connect and learn lessons from Mother Nature? And those are really, for me, the two most important things. And I think that those are not often talked about enough. And also, a lot of people have no idea that's what they're even doing. And so now we have so many people who, for one, they're dipping, which is great. I love seeing a lot of people dip. Okay, that's not at all the issue. It's just that, for one, when we have so many people not really understanding what they're doing, it can become very unsafe, which is a huge piece because not everybody should be dipping. And if we aren't connected with the practice and also connected with ourselves as we're doing it, listening to ourselves, there are people who are adrenally fatigued. There are people who are suffering from extreme stress who, in my opinion, shouldn't be cold dipping. Their adrenal glands and their system is just overburdened. So less is more in that case. And so when we just do these practices without having an understanding, then we lose our ability to navigate if this is good for us or not, and what's the purpose of doing this. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I answered your question, but hopefully.
No, that was beautiful. And yeah, I wanted to, touch on this because when I first personally, so I'm not as advanced as you and Laura. I am still just dipping that face in the bowl of ice water and
That's
haven't
great.
and haven't done a full dip yet. But a lot of people like, we just think kind of black and white, right? Like, oh, cold therapy, I have to, go find an ice cold lake and jump in it. And there is, we can work up to that. So yeah, could you talk a little bit about like things people can do to work up with it and how one might know that they're ready to progress to the next phase safely?
I think, safety is a great thing you brought that up. So the first thing, and especially as if we connect it to the Wim Hof method, what we teach is, well, first, if people listen to this and they consider the Wim Hof method, just quickly, we never do the breath work because people will think about the Wim Hof in cold and they'll think about breath work. So it just needs to be said, never to do the breath work in conjunction with the cold or even in the water, in cold water, anything even close. If you're going to do the breath work with the Wim Hof method, you're laying down in a safe environment and you're doing the breath work. So they're not at all connected, just more of a disclaimer. And secondly, so we build up gradually, as you mentioned, is the best way. So it's just like learning to walk before you run. So a lot of us want to just jump right in because we see our friends doing it. And again, this egoic part wants to seem like we are equal to others and we can do it. And we kind of over jump where we actually are in life. So if you want to start, I would suggest just starting with a cold shower. I mean, that's the best way. So you start with warm water in your shower. Then maybe towards the end of your shower, you turn it cold for 10, 15 seconds and go back to warm. And just get a taste for what that cold water feels like. And then after that becomes relatively comfortable, then extending that cold time. So doing warm, more cold, go back to warm. Eventually you do a warm shower, go to cold, and you'd stop going back to warm. And what you're building up to is a full cold shower. Now, mind you, it's really difficult to wash your body with soap and cold water. So just be mindful of that. And then eventually, if you have a tub at home, you could fill your tub with cold water and do your dips at home. And kind of the top most difficult, I mean, next would be an actual ice bath where the water isn't moving. And then the top most difficult is in nature, in moving water, which is also the most dangerous. So finding a place where the water isn't moving too much, where you can find steady footing, and it could be an ocean even. And that would be the most. And you always want to have somebody there with you. So always using the buddy system and somebody who can help, not someone who's dipping with you, but somebody who's on the shore who can help you, who has warm clothes and they can really help you, especially if you're in moving water. And as far as knowing when you're ready to progress, I think that's really subjective. I think it's up to the person. I mean, there's no, I wouldn't say there's a benchmark to meet where, okay, now I'm ready for the next step. I think you will do it before you feel ready, because if we wait till we feel ready, we probably would never progress. We're just going to stay as we often like in our comfort zones. So you do it before you truly feel ready. But I think that in a general sense, it's once you've become relatively comfortable with where you're at, because even, what we're doing with cold exposure is we are coming out of our comfort zones and we're kind of expanding our comfort zones. It's not that every time you take a cold dip, you're jumping out of your comfort zone. What we're doing, we're actually making their comfort zone bigger. So for example, in my own journey, when I first started cold dipping, it was way out of my comfort zone to get in cold water. And now I don't think twice about it. So in terms of serving the purpose of expanding my comfort zone, it's kind of already done that, served that purpose for me. So I think you have your own feeling of when you feel generally comfortable and then you move on.
I could actually share my story because my witness is here. So when this is really for your benefit, Andeea. When I took the Wim Hof course, I would really recommend people take the course to learn cold for the first time, because like Jacob taught us a whole section on cold, a whole bunch of safety. And so I felt confident that way. And then if I remember, Jacob, for two things, you had recommended, we got an email weeks before the course, and you suggested for 3 weeks before the course that we did cold showers. So I wasn't doing those. So that was new for me. And then when I got to the course, it was at the end of the day and it was voluntary. You made it well known nobody had to do this. But I've told you since that I actually had a hot water bottle hidden in my backpack. And I was in this course, it was 2019. And everybody in the course was male. Thank God Jess was there helping out. And but they were all they were firefighters and physiotherapists. They're all 6 feet tall and strong. They were doing cartwheels in the breaks and handstands. And so when I came to a bunch of them went, and it was I loved it how everybody cheered everybody on. So ego did come in, but I think ego did help me because I was like, I really want to do 2 minutes, but I will never forget the experience, because I got in and I think I got 10 seconds and you were there. And I looked at you and I said, I'm not going to make I think I wasn't going to make 30 seconds is what I said. But in my head, I was going to make 2 minutes. And you just, I don't know if you remember with me, but obviously you do this, but can you remember, or like, what is your strategy to get people to go a little further?
I just hold them in the water. No,
No,
no.
because I can tell you what I remember, but
I don't fully remember our experience. I mean, it's been so
no.
many people. Yeah, maybe share. I mean, I do to help people stay in. I mean, there's a whole, and since you started with me, there's been an evolution, obviously, in how I run workshops and the things I say and what I do
Right.
as my own learning has gone on. So there's a massive difference in the preface and the build up and in the intention setting and talking about this connection with nature and taking the pressure off.
Mm.
So that helps a lot of people. And the second part is what really I think helps is guiding them through the breath. Because by
Yes.
the time I help get them, and I have a way to do that, by the time I help them get their breath back, it's already over a minute. So then they're like, oh wow, I'm already over halfway. I
Yeah.
can do this. And they feel like
Yeah.
they can now do it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
exactly what you did for me.
yeah,
I'm so thankful because Jacob, you're one of the few people in my life that I can honestly say changed my life.
too
Yeah,
kind.
from the heart. No,
Yeah.
really. My life changed after it was December 2019 and I did this, and I didn't take it to I was gonna well, I guess it's a question I'll ask, can this become an addiction? But I don't think this did not become an addiction. It became a source of strength for me and to see my own limits and to see that I'm stronger,
Yeah.
and how I think I can handle stress, so much better for it. So many questions for you. Okay, so I'm going to jump a few out. One is, do you think it can become an addiction?
I mean, I I know there that's a really hard and interesting question. So I know there are people who will dip every single day. Now, I don't know if depends how, first of all, how we classify addiction. And I don't know how such something that stresses us out, if it's that people find addicting, or if it's just the after feeling, obviously, that people find addicting and
Mm.
just searching for that after feeling. I can't give you an answer. I'm not sure if it
Yeah,
can become an
I
addiction.
don't. Do you know, Andeea?
Well, when when you ask that, Laura, I think about, anyone with a disease of addiction. If you tell us something is good for us, well, then 20 of them must be really good, right? So if you
More is
tell me
better.
this, one thing is gonna do X, Y, and Z, well, then if I do it 20 times, it's gonna be the best. And that's kind of like how we think. But I feel like with cold therapy, like, yes, it's beneficial, but with addiction, like, it's gonna be, is it messing with your daily life routine? Are you calling into work because you need to do another dip? Like, that's unlikely gonna happen, I think. And
It's got
also
a limit.
I think with the health benefits and with people knowing what it can do for them, like, I mean, for me personally, like, I know I'm getting that when I do it. And not to say I have definitely done dunks before, but not since I've actually learned the benefits of cold therapy. I've been doing it like progressively the proper way.
Mhm.
And yeah, it does give you a boost of confidence. And if someone is starting to look for their happiness, if you will, from that, like, I think that they're only going to be I mean, they're going to very likely injure themselves and probably learn a lesson. I think this is kind of a more I just think it would be maybe uncommon, but that's
I
just my opinion when I think about
Yeah.
it. But yeah, it is kind of a tough question to answer.
I have called it my happy pill though, like because we
Yeah.
often go on Saturdays and I'm like, I don't need chocolate, I don't need any, I just no coffee, caffeine.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, go for your cold dip and you feel it through the rest of the day and how your
Yeah.
day progresses. Yeah. One thing you have alluded to is this connection with nature. Jacob, I don't know if you have, other than if you have a bathtub at home, but a lot of people are going out and buying these, I forget if
Cold
not
plunges.
cold plunges or
Yeah.
forges, or it's not the right word, I think. But I don't think you have yet. Is it because you still prefer to find the river? And although there's a season where we're stuck, which is right now. Unless the only thing you can do, which I've done, is if you're a swimmer, if you swim long enough, I find you can get to the shiver stage, if you don't
Mm.
get into a sauna quickly after, like, but obviously the temperatures are rising and you miss a couple months of cold therapy opportunities. But just that's what I wondered, just wondering about your practice, your personal
Mm.
practice.
It's definitely changed over time. I do love dipping in the river. And I mean, I have a tub here. I just haven't bought a chiller. A chiller would be something that keeps the water cold, not having to add ice all the time. But even for me in the winter, so I used to be somebody who, yeah, I want every day to do my cold plunge. But I don't want to piss off the wrong people here, but I don't know if that's necessarily good for you. and especially in my life, I'm not sure if like what I got to a point even with breath work and with a lot of these other than meditation, a lot of these modalities, we're needing, first of all, needing to do it every day or else my day won't be good. I don't, that's not really an addiction. It's more so I want to be able to have a good day and not feel guilty about not doing these things. So I don't want to have them have to be my anchor in terms of having a good day. And
Mhm.
also, I don't know if there's enough research in stressing our bodies out every single day in these ways. So I just kind of go based on my feeling. I used to do the breath work every day in terms of the Wim Hof breathing. And I naturally, as I have begun to try to live my life more intuitively, I have just kind of slipped away from doing it every day. And now I do it maybe every third day, something like that. And with the cold in the winters, I used to try to dip every day and I kind of just feel into what I'm wanting that day. And I maybe do it 3 times a week, 2 times a week. And some weeks I don't ever do it. And so my practice has really changed. This has kind of led me to, as you mentioned before we started, the Life Rich Collective and all this thing,
Mhm.
is I realized that there is a sort of pillar in terms of human fulfillment, mindfulness, and not a pillar, but a pyramid in terms of human fulfillment, mindfulness, and I think health. And my focus was predominantly at the top of the pillar, these things that help, but maybe only help in terms of my full life spectrum, fulfillment, purpose, health, everything, maybe 1 to 10%. And I was largely not focusing on the foundation, the bottom parts, which I think that's where we get into another conversation of, are we doing these things that have the allure that are more fancy, like cold plunging? Are we doing those things and ignoring the really basic things that lead to true happiness, fulfillment, and a healthy life? And that's what I found in my own life I was doing. And so now my main focus is on the foundation and the bottom of the pyramid. And that's why my practice in these other modalities has gone down, because they're at the top and they are what comes after I take care of all the rest of the things. So again, I don't know if that answers it.
It sounds to me this journey has led to being more intuitive,
Hmm.
listening to your body, being able to trust, and probably a
Hmm.
million other things, but it's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Listening to the body is a funny one because a lot of people say that, and even me, and it can become an excuse. So there's a really nuanced piece here where it's listening to the body in the sense of, because for me actually it's good because I would have to, like, I would be, if I didn't listen to the body I'd be doing everything. But so for me it doesn't go the other way where I'm listening to my body and I'm like using it as an excuse not to do all these things, but it can very quickly become that.
Mm,
So it is this intuitive sense of what do I actually need today. And I think that
mm,
in our day and age, we have become so busy and we feel like we aren't achieving something unless we're doing something, that a lot of times less is more, and that we can actually be okay not to do things and then try not to feel guilty about it. And we can have a lot of benefit from doing less.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I know
that's a
you
very
you
good
have
point.
a free ebook called Less is More that
Mhm.
I downloaded, and I think it's free, right, Jacob?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
about, I think it really is about is increasing the potency of your rituals that you're doing. So not needing to do 10 different things, but if you're going to do something, really enhancing the potency and what its effect is going to be. And it comes back to your intention and why you're doing it and all those other things, which a lot of times we just do things to check them off our to-do lists.
Okay, intention. I've been wanting to ask you. I'm like, don't forget, don't forget.
Okay.
So something that you brought this year in this season of dipping was this idea of setting an intention, right?
Mhm.
Before a cold dip. Can you explain a little bit about that and why you do that?
Yeah, again, it's coming back for me. Like I just was kind of doing this practice without thinking of why I'm doing it. And then at that point, it's just like becomes another thing that we do in our day mindlessly on autopilot.
Mhm.
And I think it's part of the less is more. If we can connect to what we're doing and remind ourselves why we're doing this, it has a greater power for us because our minds are so powerful. So if we are just basically living up in our daydreaming and not really connecting with what we're doing, the power of what we're doing is not going to be as great. But if I can say, okay, I'm dipping, I'd like to dip because I'd like to really connect with myself. I want to dip because I'm looking for these health benefits, or I want to have Mother Nature teach me about my stress, or whatever the case may be, and then really connect with that before you do the dip, that is something that you are now intentionally going out and seeking and can get out of it, rather than, for me, it was, okay, I'm going in, I'm spending my time, I'm getting out. And then I don't even think twice about it or why I did it or how I felt or anything like that. So I think it just does also, like I said, increase the potency of what we're doing.
Oh my gosh. So Andeea is probably having the same thought at the same time here about water. And so, when water is a key module in studying quantum
Mm,
biology. And, we've learned about how you can imprint, thoughts in your water, and even to the point of, and then drinking it, and then putting that, your body becomes those thoughts.
mhm.
And it's partly because of all of that I've learned. Dr. Emoto's work, and now Veda Austin, she's another one to look up. She's amazing. She does these experiments with ice crystals. Just with you bringing that to my attention this year as we were dipping, now I think about it as, what intention do I want to give the water? Like I usually now added more like a blessing to the
Mhm.
water, and how can I make this water healthier? And then when obviously there's, like you said, bring another intention for the purpose of that specific dip. So, and I had to, yeah,
Well,
You
water
can
and
is
expand that. Oh,
so
sorry.
exciting. Yeah, go ahead.
it's okay. Well, and you guys are out in nature doing it. So Mother Nature's literally scooping you up, protecting you with its natural Faraday cage, and you're
Mm,
collecting all those electrons. It's just really, really beautiful. Like, I want to get to a place where that is what I'm doing, because when we are out in nature, there are just a million other benefits. And,
Mhm.
you're bringing another layer to it, Laura, by
mhm.
talking about the water, and then your attention not only to the water in our body, but the water that is going to teach you this lesson that you are about to step into. It's really beautiful.
Just, yeah, the three pillars. So Wim Hof has three pillars, and I would say quantum biology has three pillars, and it's light, water, and magnetism. And
Mm,
and that's the thing about nature dipping. And maybe one of the reasons I don't yet have a tub is that I will always prioritize the lake or the river,
yeah.
because it gets you out in sunlight. But if people do have a tub, get it on your back deck. At least force yourself to get outside and
Yeah.
get in the light. But you miss the magnetism piece if you're not, yeah, well, I mean, some pools and stuff are grounded, but yeah. So anyway, so
And I
interesting.
think you can extend that intention to, well, you can extend it to everything that you do. I mean, if you're going to set an intention on everything you do, you're going to really exhaust yourself. But I think, like, even the food we eat, like, I don't want to necessarily get into diet and all those things because it's kind of
I
become
had a
of
question. I
a
did have a
religion for
question.
people. Okay, sure. But like, just quickly, just like saying thank you to, I mean, because I eat meat, so connecting with what I'm eating and just really thanking that animal that's given its life for me. And again, that's increasing the potency and also just respecting and realizing that something did have to give its life. And you can take that and you can really, like, meditating, like, set an intention for why you're meditating, rather than, for me, it used to be, I'm just going to sit and meditate so I can just get it done. But now it's like, okay, no, I'm connecting when I meditate now. And this has been the key change in actually keeping up with it for me in my life. I'm actually connecting with something larger than myself every time I meditate. And so some people call that source, some people call that universe, some people call it God, whatever it is. But that is what I am doing every time I meditate, and it profoundly has increased the effect of my meditation.
Yeah.
Mhm. I'm looking at you, Andeea, because I feel like you're going to ask him something on that.
No, I think you were
No?
about to ask him a question in a
Okay,
second.
oh yeah,
You
I've
go
got
ahead.
such a long list. Just first a comment, because the question was on food. I know you've changed your diet, as have I. And actually, you lent me an important book in my journey there on it. And I just want to say for the listeners, Jacob actually goes to the farm weekly and meets help and volunteers in the barns. And that's how beautiful this connection is. And yeah, I think it's so important. We've lost that just buying our meat, our food at the grocery store. But has changing your diet made cold therapy easier? Have you noticed any link on that?
Honestly, I haven't noticed in
Okay.
terms of cold, no.
Okay. I have, I'll just say, because
Okay.
mine was so dramatic. I went from alkaline, eating like a lot of cucumbers, and this is where we get into the quantum nutrition, where the light code in that food is grown in really high UVB light. And
Mm,
I'm ingesting it in wintertime in Canada. And then I would So I think I was on the tail end of that when I trained. So I that's why I had that water bottle. My body was really challenged to warm up. I
Mm,
was freezing. I was in extra clothes beyond everybody around me. And what's so interesting for me is since I'm eating a quantum diet where I'm eating with the seasons. Now in winter, I'm out cross country skiing, with a backpack, safety, with extra clothes nearby, but I can go out in a tank top and cross country ski, and I'm trying to adapt. I'm trying to cold adapt. And so
mm.
that's something that when we talk about cold therapy, I just want to bring out that it's not only just in in water. And with that, I want to ask you, because we see videos, anybody that knows of the Iceman, you've been to Poland how many times, Jacob?
So I went as a participant, and then I've been there as an instructor in Poland twice now and in Spain once.
Okay. And so can you tell us about, do you do some, I know you guys do some cold dipping, but do you do some cold exposure with Wim?
Yeah, a lot of it's so when you're a participant, you do like you are actively doing all the things. As an instructor, you're there to hold space and to be ready to help and guide. So you don't do it when you're an instructor, but as a participant, yeah, you're doing it all with Wim. You're doing a hike with minimal clothing, into the mountains in the middle of winter and all these different things, ice baths, really long ice baths. So, we can talk about that, but yeah, you do quite a bit of cold exposure with Wim and without Wim.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the benefits. I just want to make sure today we get some of the science. I know you teach that
Mhm.
in the course. So cold thermogenesis, maybe you could explain a little bit more on the term, or I don't know if you just call it cold therapy, but this idea of it's getting the body to make the heat. And why would we benefit from that? And why would we benefit from shivering?
Mm. Okay, so cold therapy, are you talking about like the metabolic thermogenesis, like brown
Yes.
fat activation?
Yes. Yeah. If you could,
Okay.
can you give us a little bit on that?
Yeah. So cold therapy, I mean, there's many ways to do it. I think predominantly most of the science is and the research is done on dipping with the water over your shoulders. I don't think there's much research done on showers and any other kind, and maybe cryotherapy. But I do believe they say there's more benefits with dipping versus cryotherapy. I could be wrong on that. It's out of my element, but I'm not
Mhm.
too familiar with cryo. But yeah, so basically metabolic thermogenesis, or as an easier way of naming it is brown fat activation. I will say there still needs to be a lot more research done on it. It's very preliminary in terms of how far research goes and how deep you can get. But it's the idea that we are using our nutrients from within, and this is again working with the mitochondria to heat ourselves up from within. So it used to be thought that only children and infants had what's called brown fat, which I'll give you a quick background. It's called brown fat because it's made up of mitochondria, and mitochondria is brown. So they call it brown fat. It used to be thought that only children and infants had this because they don't really have the ability to shiver like adults do to warm up. So they needed naturally another mechanism to warm up, which would be brown fat activation or metabolic thermogenesis. But then it's been shown that adults can actually also have brown fat and use this metabolic thermogenesis to warm up. Now, it's not one or the other. We still shiver to warm up, and usually, actually, shivering is a precursor to brown fat activation. So you're probably going to shiver first, and then you're going to transition into brown fat activation. And really, I'd say most of the benefits that I'm aware of is just in terms of your metabolism, and I guess that's probably the extent of it is working with your mitochondria and enhancing your metabolism. There probably are other benefits, but I mean, it's warming you up just like shivering is. So I don't know, maybe you might actually know more than me about it as terms of what the other benefits would be for it.
Well, over the years, I think I keep telling you, oh, I found another scientific reason to
Mhm.
do
Yeah.
cold therapy. So I think I'm up to 47, and
Wow.
I know, I am going to write a blog post. I don't
Amazing.
know why I keep
Yes.
putting it off. And I have a workshop, that's in the works. I've had it in the works for years, but
Yeah.
I have taught it in my leptin protocol. It helps
Hmm.
leptin sensitivity, but one thing
Okay.
I learned even just today doing a little bit of research after the age of 40, which I don't think it affects you guys because you're younger than me, but
I'm
it's something
over
that
Almost there.
40.
almost, yeah.
I'm
So
34, so it'll be there soon enough.
34. Yeah. Oh, you just a baby to me. But anyway, after the age of 40, we tend to have less of this this brown
Yeah,
bat. What is it?
brown fat. Yeah,
Brown fat and stats. Yeah, white. There's white fat, wat, and bat.
yeah,
And with that, we tend to be more obese if we had the less brown fat that you have. It's like, and but it is more insulin sensitive, and we want to be insulin sensitive. We
that's
don't
right.
want to be insulin resistant. And so I think as we age, this, for anti-aging, I think doing cold therapy is a good thing. And it's what I have noticed looking at the seniors in my life, they're freezing. They're all often wearing an extra layer, and the heat has to be high, and they don't want to go outdoors. And I'm hoping with this knowledge that we can, as we age, we can, not go there and really stay healthy. So another question I have is, you mentioned the shoulders, going into the shoulders. So just background again, my understanding is the brown fat is more concentrated in the clavicles, back of the neck, in the back.
Mhm.
Do you know if there's a benefit to putting your head in when we go in, or can we still get the same effect? Just
Yeah, you don't have to put your head in. That adds another layer of warming up and another layer of intensity and of challenge. But I don't even think there's much research on putting your head in one way or the other, like if it's any better or not. You definitely get a lot of benefits. Even just getting your brainstem in and over your shoulders would be it. Yeah.
okay. I have heard for I don't know if it's a wives' tale about the shower, about putting your head in and ending on cold. And if you end it on, get that cold on your head, it may help your hair stay. So I,
Oh,
I I do it. Don't know if it's true,
maybe.
but
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, I would say that the reason would be mainly because when you put cold on the parts of your body, your head may not have to the same extent, but it constricts the blood flow. And then so
Mhm.
then when you warm up, it really shoots a lot of blood flow
Right.
into that part of your body. So one of the issues with hair loss is that the blood flow is actually limited to the follicles of your hair. So if you are limiting it and then you open it back up and you can enhance the blood flow, it could possibly help. But I think that's a stretch, I think.
I know that it closes the hair shaft.
Oh,
I
okay.
never heard about the hair growth, but yeah, I've rinsed my hair in cold water, getting out, like I've always ended my showers with a cold because I tend to have frizzier hair. So rinsing
Mm.
the water, but that is like not the cold therapy people we're talking about. We're
Hey,
not
that's a
talking
Oh,
beauty
about
tip. We can use that. We'll take that.
little beauty tip, but
I love it.
you know,
How long have you
well,
been dipping, Jacob? Have you ever counted?
since no, I think I started in 2018, 2019, so not that long. Only
Oh,
about
okay.
6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like it feels like longer, but I think that's it.
Okay. So with that, I guess I want to ask you, have you had any, what are the benefits you've experienced personally? And then if you can just mention as one of them, because I've seen it, I've seen you get injured. I don't know if you get injured in your
Mm,
work or in sports, but I've seen you turn around injuries in record time. So anyway, could you share
that's one
your
of the
yeah.
experience?
benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
No, we're talking, but
Uh,
more than that, like
yeah.
joint and yeah.
Mhm.
So benefits for me, predominantly the two things I think I mentioned are managing stress and just my connection with nature. Outside of that, it would be a stretch for me to say anything else because I didn't take any benchmark measurements of my blood pressure or my heart
Mhm.
or anything like that before. So I don't know. I do feel like I'm 34 now. I do feel better. This probably has a lot to do with also changing my nutrition. I do feel like I did when I was 20, especially
Mhm.
like playing sports again now. I don't get injured. I feel like it's so that's a possibility, but predominantly those two main areas that I've noticed. In terms of injury, yeah, so I tore my Achilles tendon. That's probably the biggest thing that I cured or healed from. And so it was a full rupture. And I I was better in 3 months, and I could go back to work as a firefighter in 4 months. I could have gone earlier, but I was like, oh, this is a bit soon, and let's just like pump the brakes here.
Is that
So
with surgery?
with surgery, yep.
Yes.
And the kind of time frame they were working with was a year. I guess that's usually again, how long it takes people on average is a year before you get back to doing anything even remotely close to what you were doing. So, I mean, I had surgery going back, it was 2019. I had surgery at the beginning of July. At the mid-August that same year, I was climbing massive mountains in Washington State. And then I was back at work not soon after that. And I mean, I did all the traditional therapies. So I definitely did, the physio, the osteo, the massage, all the things. I ate a really high protein diet, as I do now also. I just see so many benefits personally with that. And I think, I mean, obviously I instilled the Wim Hof method. I have to give it credit. That was the main thing I did different than what anybody else was doing. I was doing frequent cold exposure, so getting that cold shock protein regenerating my cells, and the breath work, which, in terms of chronic pain and illness and whatever, it's basically at the root of all, as we know, pain, illness, injuries. You have that chronic issue that's there. The acute inflammation is great. We don't want it to prolong and be chronic. And so they did a study on the Wim Hof method. They compared the cold exposure with breath work, and they wanted to see where are the anti-inflammatory benefits coming from? Is it the cold exposure, the breath work, or both? And they actually found the negligible anti-inflammatory benefits with the cold. It was like nothing to even mention. The breath work blew it out of the water. And when you did them both, it was even better. So the cold actually helped to enhance the anti-inflammatory benefits. And so I was doing quite a bit of cold, but I was also doing the breath work. I was doing in the morning, in the night, every day. And then just personally, what my own feeling is, the biggest difference was every time I was doing the breath work, I was visualizing, and this gets more into like the Joe Dispenza side of things. I was visualizing my Achilles tendon and just visualizing the inflammatory markers reducing and the pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory blood just going in there and flushing it all out. And I just visualized that every day that I did the breath work. But I think that was probably the biggest thing that I did. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
thanks for sharing that. That's remarkable. I just want to mark the time that we are a few more minutes.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
just
Laura, go ahead.
just to want to finish the safety piece, because I don't,
Yeah.
we don't want people to leave here and, and just go and do 20 minutes of cold in a week
Yeah.
and freeze themselves or whatever. So can you talk about after drop or the drop? I think Wim called it. Can you explain what after drop is and how we can prevent that?
Yeah, after drop is where your body basically has a really difficult time warming back up, and it can take 2 to 3 hours. So we actually see this a lot with people, or you can imagine I was this person before. So I would do a cold dip and I would go directly into a sauna right after. And when you do that, the warm blood and the cold blood mix very quickly. And then the cold blood goes all throughout your whole body, and now it's spreading everywhere and happens fast. So not only can that actually be dangerous for your heart, having that shock right away, but it can cause you to feel really cold for a while. So for me, I was sitting in this sauna, but I was freezing in the sauna, which is weird, right? And so this after drop, basically when you get into cold water, your body temperature drops. And then when you're getting out, it's dropping even further. So it doesn't just stop. And then if you say go into a sauna, go into a warm car, get bundled up, it's going to mix quickly. And this is, yeah, where you're going to feel cold for quite a while. And I wouldn't say necessarily it can be dangerous. I guess it can be dangerous when you warm up too fast, like I said, for your heart. But it
Yeah.
is just something that we don't need to do. We can avoid, and we can warm up naturally on our own and let that warm and cold blood mix slowly and mindfully and gradually warm up. Now, I won't say that there aren't benefits to thermocycling, because I know there
Right.
are, and I don't know enough about it. Like I haven't looked into it to say what they are or what the risks are, but that would be something totally people to research on their own. So
You
that
know
is a
who?
whole separate thing.
Dr. Susanna Soberg, she's in Denmark. She's a cold dipper, but she's a researcher. She's doing that kind of research. And I
Okay,
know,
great.
yeah, and they actually, it's called the Soberg principle, is the idea is that you have to always end on cold.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's probably for that reason.
Yeah, I didn't know that till you just explained that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, they also do say like there is this when you do thermocycling, there's actually three parts to the cycle. There's cold, there's a break, and then there's warm. Cold, break, and warm. So there's always that break in between, supposed to be anyway, to let your body regulate and hopefully not warm up too quickly. I think that's for that reason, to not shock the heart and have you warm up too quickly.
Interesting. Because these, there's Nordic spas that have that cycling,
Yeah.
it's warm. Yeah, interesting.
The difference when you go to the
Mhm.
Nordic spa, the good thing is, so we find that, I mean, everybody handles the cold differently, and you could get into a whole conversation about how cold does the water have to be, how long. The thing about the Nordic spas, the cold water usually isn't any colder than 10 or 15 degrees. So we're not getting into those
Too
0 to
cold.
3 degree waters. So this is more so like if you're dipping in a river and then you go directly into a sauna or something like that, you're probably going to experience it more than at a Nordic spa.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, so much more we could ask you, and maybe we'll get you back. We'd
Yeah,
love to
sure.
dive into
Anytime.
so much more. We have this signature question that we'd love to ask you. We may have to reword it for you because we realize you haven't taken this quantum biology course, but you are living it, Jacob, doing the, in water, the breathing, all these things have benefits in the cold. But what does it mean for you to be quantum healthy, or I could say life rich, or beyond extraordinary?
Yeah. So I mean, that's a hard question, because my perception on so many things to do with health and life have changed a lot, even probably more so in the last 6 months than the rest of my life. That I think it's really about getting to stop for me, to stop
Mhm.
hyper focusing on the 1% of things that are going to have minimal change, and then having those things run my life, and rather living as a full, how do you explain it? Like a full being, where this is like being in nature more, connecting with others more, laughing more, having more fun. Yeah, I think those are the main pillars, and focusing on what I'm eating, and not to the point where I'm again anchored in that and I have to eat a certain way. It doesn't become like a religion for me or something like that.
Yeah.
But connecting with all these things that I think inherently are the baseline for a fulfilled life. I guess that's probably the easiest way I can explain it right now.
That's beautiful. I love that. There's
Beautiful.
so much freedom in that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I love that it's your new answer, that, like you've gone through this journey, and yeah, there was a lot of wisdom in that.
Ask me again next week and I might change again.
Jacob,
Well,
what do you offer, like, for
yeah.
people? I've taken a few things from your website, but I want to make sure we hear it from you. And what do you offer people?
So again, this has also changed, but so there's a few different things. The main three things right now are, I do one-on-one coaching, I do retreats, and an online community, which is the Life Rich Collective, which is totally free right now to join. And then there's just tons of offerings and free things in there for basically everything that we're talking about.
I'm a member, early
Yeah.
member. Yeah, you
I'm
just
gonna
offered
have to join.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's still
you just
growing. I
offered
mean, I love it. Yeah.
yeah, you just offered a free Oxygen Advantage masterclass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that happened
So
not too long ago. Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, where can
Cool.
people find you?
Oh, yes. Okay. They can find me, well, two places, social media. So it's Jacob Mark is my social media, and then jacobmark.com. And I also have a YouTube channel. I believe it's Jacob Mark, and I offer free breathwork, yoga nidra, and meditation guided stuff there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amazing. Everybody, you're gonna have to go check out everything Jacob has. It sounds like you offer a lot of value in what you're putting out there.
I
Thank you so
enjoy it. Thank
much
you.
for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. This was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, thank you. And
Yeah.
any parting words? Anything we missed, or
I don't think, oh, geez, if we have another hour, I don't think we want to get into another conversation. There's a lot,
we gotta
I
have
know
you
there's a
back.
lot more.
Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah,
have you back.
sure, definitely.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakistmanwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.